Hôtel de Ville, we have like this in front, you won't believe it. By French immigrants. And you had the English going to the Americas, and the French were doing the same. You know, but the 13 colonies is a bilingual country, okay? And this man, Paul Chemelet de Maisonneuve, is the father of the city of Montreal. Have you heard about Montreal?
Yeah.
It's a big city in Canada, and it's a French-speaking country. And in French, this is Montreal. In English, Mont. Those buildings are from the 16th century, in the time where Europe was covered with a very large forest, and locals were chopping down the tree, and they were building these properties. And normally you always have, a basement of the house made of stone, in order to stop the humidity going up in the building like this. And then you're putting the timber in between. They were putting a mix of mud and hay, and there was fill at that time. It was quite fast to build these properties. If you stand here, you can see that little tower here hanging like this. Any idea why you have this tower like this? One toilet? No. It's a good try. Security, no. In fact, look at that building that's the same. And you were before paying tax recording of the size of the property directly on the land. So if you were expanding your property, you know, the first level on the second level, you were paying less tax. You see what I mean? So it's like people were trying to expand their property on here. But sometimes you have building, you look like an upside down pyramid sometimes. Of course, obviously, if you were
Ah bah attends, j'ai une idée. Mais regarde. Il y a déjà une place, non?
better than Hawaii.
Ici, là, il y a combien là?
Il faut faire les travaux là-bas. Il y a encore un peu de travaux. Mais ça ouvre bien. Ah oui? Ça ouvre. Parce que ça ouvre quoi? Ça ouvre pas la fin.
Yes, we are in front of a typical street back from the Middle Ages. Can you see that? Here it's called by the local La Ruelle des Chats, the cat street. Why? Because the cat can easily jump from one roof to the other. And imagine that in the Middle Age, and looking at the these stones were very convenient. That was like the sidewalk nowadays. When you were having somebody coming on the horse and you were standing behind the stone like this. And that was the only way to get protected from the horses. Can you believe that? And it was quite dangerous. So you can see why also as an example, the left house was on fire automatically. So here they were ashamed to live in this. And in the 60s, it had been decided to invest money in the old town to bring the modern facilities. And it Yes, you see, we are getting on the back of the decor, I would say so. And we have something interesting here. That's those buildings you see here. Troyes is famous for having the best carpenter of France. Carpenters are following, they have a special training, they have a special education program. When they are turning 15, 16 years old, they can leave the main education system and they want to get carpenter, and they will do something called a Tour de France, like the bike race, and they will go from town to town. They will work, one town they will work the oak tree, another town they will work the walnut tree, and then they will work with the palm trees. And when they are ending their trip around France, the internet, they have dishwasher and microwave. Right. Where I'm standing, you can see the back of this building. I remember they are modern building. It will take a few hundred years to look old. For the moment, they are very nice. And also, they had also, once they had built this building, they had recreated that middle-aged garden also, with the boxes like this. And the boxes are very French. And French people like to control Mother Nature. And that's also, everything has to be straight in the French garden. Have you been to Versailles? And Versailles is like this. French garden, very formal. But then, you know, it's a middle-aged garden. So what does it mean? That you have flowers, but in that time, in the Middle Ages, you know, people were looking for food. Yes, and that's a good door once again. This is something that was built 20, 30 years ago. And it's a modern building, and it's called, by the local, it's called La Cour du Mortier d'Or. Or is gold, mortier is a mortar. This is a place where people were crushing gold. And when you have the time, you have the big fairs in Troyes, you have many places like this in Troyes, and people were coming, entering the places, and on the street level, you know, this is a place where you were buying and selling gold. Basically, there was a banking service. And on the first floor, this is the place where people were making the coins, they were knocking the gold and making the currency, and locals were living on the top floor. So imagine that you have a lot of business. And well, they are waiting. So, allons y va. Alors, ladies and gentlemen, when you hold a glass of wine in France, never do.
Đi xuống cái này thấy oh, the church. Oh, yeah, look at that. Nice, beautiful church. Oh, look at this.
Cái phía trên này nó giống như cái square vậy.
Đi vòng vòng một bên kia có cái nhà thờ đi. Đi ra nhà thờ.
Thấy nó mưa lâm râm nữa.
Đi qua đây lại cái đường này nè, đi khác tại vì mấy con mèo này đó nó ở trong này nè, thấy không? Đi khác
Mưa lâm râm nữa.
nè.
Ở dưới nó có cái central đó.
Hello. Người muốn ngồi ở đây không?
Ngồi thiếu gì chỗ ngồi.
Ngồi ở đây là chứ người đi washroom được.
Washroom gì nữa, mới vừa đi nhiều người làm như vậy. Tao uống cà phê đó là nó là control.
look like it. It's very nice. Troy.